Good evening, Taira Chabura of Kol Taira Kol Live, where we cruise through the entire Taira Shabbal Peh with the Rambam in our lead. And we're holding Hilchas Avodas Kochavin. We're learning today what happens in a case that a person decides to serve something greater than himself, something he has no handle over, and something that hasn't been changed from the way it was created naturally. And therefore, he definitely is oiver, an avera, and be mechil an isser on that object or on a piece of nature. Let's see it inside halacha aleph of Perek Ches. And at the conclusion of today's shir, I want to share with you some special thoughts on Shnas Hakel. As I mentioned in the previous shir, that we had a very special gathering today, this past Shabbos, and I want to share some reflections. So, Perek Ches. Kol she'ein boi tfisas yad adam, something that a person does not have a grip over. V'loy aso adam, or even if he didn't create it, he didn't make it. For example, an animal. Tfisas yad adam is like that he does not have any grip over. We're talking about a mountain, a valley, a stream of water. Even if he decided to serve it, doesn't become avodah zarah. And something that he didn't make, for example, a behema. If he didn't make a shinui in it, it doesn't become also. Even if he served it, it will remain completely mutter and permissible to enjoy from. For this exact reason, those idol worshippers that serve mountains and gvois, the berglach, the entire smaller mountains, ve'ez or hilltops, hills, and the trees that were, if these trees were planted initially for personal use of peiris, and the well springs and rivers that are public use. They're not it's not man-made and man-guided through your personal property. For example, they're allowed to, even if a person bowed to such a behema, if he didn't make a shinui in the behema, he's allowed to eat it, allowed to enjoy it, allowed to shecht it. Allowed to eat the fruits and have the in that place. The oisa ha-behema, and that behema, again, providing that there wasn't a shinui made in it. However, and for sure we don't need to tell you that ha-behema shehukta lavitz kachavim, if it was designated for whether it was to serve this behema, whether it was to bring this, that means whether it was designated as an idol, this behema, or it was designated as food to serve before Avodas Kochavim, if no maisa was done, harei muteres. We described earlier that if a person did a maisa to kroivus is even more chamer than Avodah Zarah itself. That if a person did a maisa, right away it becomes also, even if it wasn't used, as opposed to misham shehel, vessels, etc. Now, bein shiktzul, in which case did we say a behema cannot become asur? Because it's the way it was with chil's b'riyasa. He didn't do any action and change it with the intent of avodah zarah. Also about Maisa Kol Shu, even the smallest of Maisa, Asari is prohibited. Keita, for example. For sure, if he slaughtered one of the two siman, the windpipe or the food pipe, in honor of this deity. Or Asal Chalivin Lavadis Kochavim, he swapped it in to benefit Avodas Kochavim. That means he took something for Avodas Kochavim and gave this instead. Asara, it has become prohibited. It changed the reshus, it changed its essence. Even though it's external, seemingly, to that object. The chein chalife chalifin. Same too is, let's say, he exchanged for one thing, and then that was exchanged for a behema. The clip of the iser of Sarah continues on. This is payment for avodah zarah, and this takes the place of the avodah zarah. Now, b'medvar, and it's also about b'medvar. In which case, bebehemas atzmoi. In which case, can it, yes, become also if this was used as an exchange, and this takes on the value, this is kilo exchanged as instead of the value of the Avodas Kochavim, and he's gaining from it. This is if it's his behema. If a person came along and shechted the behema for the behema didn't belong to him, shechted the tavayz chama echlifar, swapped it, loy nesses become also. Shein adam oiseh davar shein oiseh. A person can't prohibit something that never belongs to you. It's not yours. Hamishtach v'lekarka oil, a person bowed to the earth of the world, to the ground. Lo yasari has not made it aser. Chavar ba'boyros, if he dug within them, however, wells, shichin cisterns, Uma Aros and caves, if it was with intention, 4 of its Kochavim, Asara, at that point, he has made it Asur. Oh. Now we're going to discuss a river, a sea, for example, that has a wave. And the wave has now changed from the way it was in its natural state, and therefore in Inyan, he could make it Asur. But he has no control over, so we'll see an interesting scenario. Maim shakar nagal, water that the wave picked it up and, so to speak, changed it from just being calm, still waters with all the other waters one piece, like raised up. In that case, even though vishtachvalan loyasaran, you don't have control, you didn't do it. However, natalam biyada vishtachvalan, if he took water out and bowed to them, asaran, he has made this water asar. Now avnei harshin idaldalu. Boulders moved out of their place, and he served them where they were. That means it changed, but it wasn't moved away from the place where it naturally now moved. Mutaris. Nobody changed it, and he doesn't have grip over it. Now, what happens if someone changed it, but it wasn't you? We'll see all of a sudden that you can be mitzvah if one person can be mitzvah if it's avodah zarah to that ma'isa. For example, Halacha Gimel, Yisrael Shazakav Leveina. A yid that stood up this brick, the shtachvasla, with the intention he's going to bow to it. However, lo yishtachvala, and we said a yid, the Yisrael, it's actually yasab ma'isa seiser, because it says the son basesa, until he actually served it. So it's not also yet. However, he already made a change from the way it was in its natural state. The guy came along and bowed to it. Asara bana, the guy was able to asid bana. Why? Sheskifasa. Standing it up that the yid did was enough of a maisa to make it asar. Chenim zakav beitza. Deal if he stood up an egg, why would come mishtachvala? Asara yasid it because he made a maisa. Chotach las. Okay, it's about mishtachvala asara because he cut into it, this squash, and this maisa changed it. Hishtachvala chatzid las. What happens, and here we're going to touch on an Inyan that generally is spoken about in Dune Tumah Betara, for example, that we know that a person touches something and he's a Rishon Tumah, but Adam can be Metama Kalim and Eichel and Kalim. And he's a Rishon, he's making it a Sheni, for example. If he touched a certain, for example, a fruit that has, let's say, a tomato that has, that green on top, or an apple, even though that's not considered one piece with the apple itself per se, because it's not eaten together, but it's a yad to the apple. It's a way of picking it up, and therefore it's like an extension of the apple, and he's metame it. That's the concept called yadis. We'll learn over there. So over here in this context, what happens if yishtachel chatzid las to half of the squash, but at the end of the day, the other half is connected to it. Even though he made the shini in one half, the second half is aser misavik shema zeh yad nevad. Even though he made the shini only in one half, if I'm understanding correctly, being that we have a suffix, maybe the second half is like a yad, is like a hold, is like an extension because it's a way to hold on to it. The second half is going to become also. Now, before we said, if you didn't make any change from the way it was naturally, here you planted it for Avodah Zarah. Somebody, Rahman, planted it for Avodah Zarah. So, Asabana, in that case, the tree itself will be Asabana. This is the prime example of an Asherah tree, which is Asar. However, it was a tree that was planted, nothing to do with Avodah Zarah. He uprooted this tree or started carving in it in honor or as an extension to some sort of deity. Even if he grafted onto this tree, this was a regular tree, a neutral tree, and he grafted onto the L'Shem Avodas Kochavim. Your addition you can take off, and that will become asabana. That means that addition is asabana. Okay, that means what you grafted into it, or sorigim is the branches that came out of it. However, shara ilan mutar, the base of the tree that was there that preceded your avodah zara actions, that stays mutar. Someone that bows to a tree, go for the tree itself doesn't become asur. All the branches and the leaves and the little fruits that come, there's the budding flower that falls, and all the fruits that come out. Throughout the time that he's serving this tree, they do become asur because they had some sort of change after what he began. It's as if he, to a certain degree, had control over it and planted it. So the next steps become asbana. Now, what happens? You don't know. I don't know if this tree is Avodas Kochavim or not. But one thing I know for sure, I see the guy, for example, it's I think the Rambam brings this example in other places. Let's say there is a date tree, palm tree, and he sees they're keeping all the dates for Yom Edom. They're making beer out of it. You can make beer out of it. They're making beer out of it. In that case, you can well assume that this is a problem. This is a asherah tree. But it says, if they say, you see them guarding, and they say that they're keeping it in order to make beer for this and this deity, this idol. Do make out of it beer, and they drink, or sheikha is strong wine, and they drink it in the day of their holiday. Hareza Elon Aser Bana. This will tell us about the tree. Very telling, and the tree is Aser Bana. And for that reason, they're doing this with their peish. This is the way they would handle such trees. Now, we said there's two forms of Asherah. One is that it itself is worship, that we discussed till now. Now we're moving on to discuss the other type of Asherah, where they would put under the Asherah tree, that's where they would keep their Avodas Kochavim. Just to tell you, interestingly enough, everybody knows there's a spy on behalf of Eretz Yisrael, Eli Cohen, that was very instrumental. I think it was in the 6-Day War. And one of the tremendous contributions he did for Am Yisrael was he convinced that a very efficient way of setting soldiers in the desert is plant by every campsite a palm tree, and then as simple as telling the Israelis, every time you see a palm tree, just drop a bomb over there. Boom. You wipe out a whole bunch of, I think it was Egyptian camps. And at the end of his life, I mean, he was captured and he passed on Kiddush Hashem. But together with that, that's the way, lahavdil, that's the way they would do it. Avodas Kochavim. They would have a palm tree, or whatever the tree was, tachas kalei tzaranan. They had these big trees, and under that was Avodas Kochavim. So that also has sort of a din like Asherah. So Allah Dalid, Ilon Shmamid in Tachtav Avodas Kochavim. Under it, they would establish Getchkes Kozman Shi Tachtav Asabana. As long as it's under the tree is Asabana. However, being that this is not an inherent Avodah Zarah, this tree was not served as Avodah Zarah, and tell them when they take out this Getchke, Hareza Motor. At that point, you're allowed to use the tree. The tree is not what's being served here. Now, if you built a home with the intention that this house should be served, or he bowed, and this is the way Mefarshim explain, he bowed to a home that was ready to be built. That means there's stones that he has gathered to build a house. In that case, there is also bana because there's tfisas yad adam, or that he made it who was saw. Now, hoya bana, if it's already a built house, v'sida v'chira l'shem avodas kochavim, and v'sida he plastered it, v'chiroi, and he made moldings and beautiful ornaments in the house to honor the getchka. In that case, hareza also bana. Presently, it is also until it took on it's a new tzura. It looks like a house. So batzim presently it's also. However, noitel mashachidish, if he takes off what he added, v'achidush also bana, only the chidush what he added, that addition will be also bana. He prepared it to be served. The rest of the bais will be mutter. If I understand correctly, that's 1 second. If he didn't serve it, then it's also bana. But if he actually served it when it was banoi, lav dafka, that's the case. As I use mashma from the Rambam. I need to look a little bit deeper. Okay. But Bekitzer, if he didn't serve the house, he just takes off what he added, and that it will be also bana because that was made l'shem avodas zara. But the rest means now. Hichnes avodas kochavim l'tech habayis. Be'etzem, the house was never served, wasn't built for this purpose. He used it as storage now to put his getchka in. In that case, kolzman shisham midrabanan, the bayis also bana. Right now it's servicing avodas zara. However, it's if he took this getchka out, chutar bayis, the house becomes again mutter bana. If he carved out of the mountain stone to be able to make out of it avodas zara, to make the sculpture to carve into it avodas zara, because he made a change. If it was already carved before him, and he just he started engraving in it the in order shati abed with that intention. So he made a shinu, but only in the external part of it. Even if he didn't add plaster and molded that, rather he mamish engraved in the stone itself. How much more so if it was just an external addition? He just takes off what he added, and that's also because that's what he added that should be served. But Shara Evan, the rest was mutter because he didn't change that. No. Till now, we were talking about stones, trees, that they were kilu neutral, and he added something, whether it's he grafted onto it or added a layer or even engraved, but just a part of it. What happened is that they placed an avodas zara on a stone, in which case right now the stone is servicing avodas zara. Whether it changed or didn't change, currently it's servicing, it's a basis to avodas zara. But it wasn't inherently prepared that way. So for the time being, it's also because right now it's servicing silka because it wasn't carved for that reason. However, now we're going to talk about benefiting avodas zara. He has a sheared wall with a getchka house. Okay, and vinafal, the wall collapsed. Here we have a problem. If you build a wall, who else is gaining from it? You have to make this wall completely on your turf. So, koinis, second problem. Real estate over here is quite expensive. You just gave them another. So, oyisa harebach, that extra ruach, that extra space that you gave them, you make it not user friendly. So they didn't gain by that space. You fill it up. He should be extending the space of the avodas kochavim. Now, you didn't build it with them. They owned one house. You bought the other house. So now, de facto, half belongs to you, half belongs to them. Simple. Okay? You didn't build it together. You didn't build it for them. So yidin mechza. We relate to half. Mechza shloi mutar bana. You're allowed to use your half. I'm all from Hilchas Pesach. They would use to hide. That's how we know what needs to be checked on our Pesach, based on Kol Makom Sheyadish L'Adam Magas, and we said that people would use it as their cubbies or their lockers. And between the rocks, they knew everybody. So your half you're allowed to, but you need to know where the half of the wall ends because you're moving into their half. You can't store things there. That's ready also bano. So mechza shalom mutar bano. Shalom makol also bano. That part avana be'etza b'afarei. Once it collapsed, everything is also bano from what was the half of the avodas kochavin. That means not just the stones. The wall collapsed. And you have a way to track, so not only their stones are also bana, even the earth and the wood, whatever it is. Now, keitzad me'abed avodas kochavim. What is the way to destroy avodas kochavim? Or shar advarim asurim beglal, or anything else that assumed that title of mishamsheh or tekroives, which have to be destroyed. Kigoyin mishamsheh, but tekroives law. So, if it's something that could be ground, shoichig v'zayil ruach, he grinds it and spreads it to the wind. Or he burns it, or puts it into Yam Melch, which disintegrates. Now, if it's something that a person cannot have any control over or grip over, going, for example, a tree that we said wasn't planted for Avodah Zarah, or mountains, despite the fact that we said that it itself not become asur. However, tzipuyoi asur bana, its coatings become asur bana. Banana bekol shehen, bekol shumehen loike. If you derive benefit even from part of them, you get malchus. Shenemar says lesachmoid kasev ezav alem. Do not covet the silver and gold that's on them. Bechol tzipuyoi avodas kachav marei bechlal mishamshel. So even though we said you can't make the essence of this tree asur, but any coatings can be appreciated. And then it's already also that coating. Now, we're going to talk about, we already spoke in yesterday's Perek Zayin, the difference between a Yiddish idol made by Yidden or made by Goyim. The nafkamina is at what point it assumes the Isser of Avodah Zarah, that by a Yid only once it's nebat, by a Goy once there's Makib Pata, she finishes, completes building it. Here's another difference, and this is in terms of how to annul it. A goy can annul his avodah zarah from being an idol, and then it becomes mutar bana. A yid's avodah zarah can never be batel. Never. Not him, not no one else. Let's see it inside halacha ches. Avodas kochavim, an idol, shall nachrim, that a goy prepared and served, or served for that matter. Shebitlu nachrim, that goyim, other ones. Before it reached your hands, you're allowed to derive benefit from. Once it's a sculpture or it's a statue that was made for their deity, then it's that they relate it as a godly item. Before you got it, let's juxtapose that with Avodas Kochavim Shel Yisrael, a getchka that was prepared by a yid, or that belonged to yid. Eina b'tei lo'elam, and it's important to note, even that it belonged to a yid. Once you acquired it, it doesn't help the guy to be mevatel. It's too late already. Even if you never served it. Eina b'tei lo'elam, there's no way to stop that iser. Afilo yanachri b'shutfus, to the extent that even if you're just a partner with a guy, and the guy said, you know what, I don't need this avodah zarah, it's not avodah zarah, I don't believe in it anymore, that's it. You know what, let's use it for whatever. Make pieces out of it. Still, ain bitul moil klum, that does not affect the rest of even those partners. El asura banal oilam, it will forever be prohibited to enjoy from, or to an agniz that needs to be buried, so no one comes to enjoy from it. Now, this then applies, as I started mentioning earlier, to a guy's getchka, but before he annulled it, it reached the hand of a yid. Too late. Doesn't help. It will forever remain asur. A yid can never be mevatel avodas kochavim, even if he has permission from the guy. Means he wants to. You can't do it on his behalf. That's it. Ve'ovid kachavim katan oishoita ain't about lavid kachavim. Even if it's still in the rishos of a guy, a child, a lunatic, can't be mevatel from and it's hard to say, a respectable guy. But oivid kachavim shabit lavid kachavim, a guy that was mevatel lavid kachavim, bein shloi kachavim acherim bal korchoi, even if he annulled it against the will of his fellow guy, and even if it was the yid that coerced him and forced him to annul it, this avodas kachavim will be not potent anymore. But this is only if the guy that annulled it doesn't need to be the one that made it or the one that served it. But the one that annuls it has to be an idol worshiper. Because if you got a guy, a random guy, then that doesn't count. That doesn't cut it. It needs to be someone that served and is mevatel. And we'll see. The Rambam has a very interesting shitta. We're going to learn it next Perek. The Rambam holds Christians are full on Avodas Kochavim. The whole concept that we're familiar with, shituf, that it's not such a problem. I quoted it yesterday. The Ramah says in Kufnun Vav, the Mechaber Taka brings the Rambam that you shouldn't partner with a guy, because you partner with a guy, and then when you start splitting up your assets, it's going to have to be an oath taken, and he's going to swear on his gachka and his thing, and b'meila you're causing a guy to mention the name of his deity and to be meisif kavod because he swears by it, etc. So therefore, don't go into a partnership with a guy. The Mechaber quotes the Rambam on that. The Ramah says that today we're makel more because it's shituf. They don't really believe that way. It's kachavim per se. It's Teres Yisrael meshutav by the Christians. The Rambam doesn't. We don't find that heter by the Rambam. And b'meila. So back to our story here. If he's a neutral guy, he's not practicing, and he's not a religious guy. Doesn't help if he's a mevatel. Now, if you're machmer to consider them like the Rambam, Avodas Kochavim. Now there's a domino effect. If you annulled, let's say it has a whole bunch of accessories, cups, tweezers, whatever else they use to serve this Avodas Kochavim, a mizbeach for that matter, and you took out the idol. This is the big idol that they were serving, all these cups and all these other things. Yeah. And once you annul the gachka, all the accessories also you annulled. They're done. However, the other way around, bitul mashamsheha, you decide, these cups, they're wonderful. I'm going to use them in my house. You see the goy says, a goy that's a devout and is a said, I'm not using this for this anymore. You see clearly he was mevatel. And then that works, but just for the mishamsheh. That doesn't work for the getchke itself. Mishamsheh mutar v'yasur rabano. So the getchke itself, the idol itself, will remain also as was achi batlana until he annuls it. But the tekroivus avodas kochavim, as we described, the tekroivus is quite severe, the most severe. That ain't a b'teil olam. Even of a goy, it will never be annulled. So something that someone sacrificed incense or a libation or wine, and he put it in front of it, or food, that once he did a maisa, it will never become mutter. Okay. And now let's discuss how one expresses his consent to annul, take away that he doesn't believe there's any ascribed powers to this Avodas Kochavim. And I think I discussed by one of the shiurim, the trip we're going to make to the big museum when we finish these halachas. Very, very special. They would cut off the noses. This was one of the ways. We'll see the Rambam related clearly. Zok the Rambam. Kate to the batla. How does one show? How does one display the fact that he and demonstrate that he annulled it from being considered avodah zara? Kata rosh chotma. He cut off the nose. Rosh azna, the tip of the ear. Rosh etzba, the tip of the finger. Pechasa, he smashed in befonel. Afal pishaloi chisra, even if he didn't take off a piece. Or you know what? He gave it to a silversmith. Just weld the whole thing down. It's as good as pechasa. Even though he didn't do it, he gave it over for that purpose. It is not and it's not doesn't the whole Isra Avodah Zarah doesn't apply anymore. Now, Aval im Mishkana, he gave it as a mashkin. He took a loan and then gave a person for security. Or he sold it to a different guy, early Yisrael, but it's a random yid. He's more than happy to keep it. He's selling it as a getchka. I believe in it. Yeah, I'm giving you the best favor. That doesn't indicate that he doesn't believe in it anymore. The fact that he gives it over to someone else. No? Sorry. He did give it as for safeguarding or as a collateral. One second. Or fell and collapsed on a wall and he didn't take it away. Or the list him, Ganavim stole it and he didn't go to file a claim. Rokak b'fanai spit at it, Hishtin b'fanai urinated towards it. Grara, he dragged it on the floor. Zarek bas atzay, threw at it shmutz. Hareza eina b'teila. He's having a moment now. But he didn't annul it. He didn't change within the Avodah Zarah. The fact that he gave it as collateral, etc., that does not make it ois Avodas Kochavin. Now, halacha yadalef Avodas Kochavin shtei nechua oivdeha, that their followers didn't change anything in it. They just abandoned it. So what's the din? Depends. Bishas shalom. If it's a time of peace and cold-blooded, they just let it sit there. We're moving on. We found bigger and better. Muteres ba'ana. That itself is an indication, and it is not usher anymore. However, shari bitlo, they annulled it from their perspective. There's no power. It's worthless. However, b'shas melchama, they ran away because they needed to. So it could have been mois and nefesh for this getchke, right? Had they been yidden and had this been a Torah. Asura. In that case, if they abandoned it in time of battle, asur. They left it for the time being because of Muhammad, but they'll come back. Or they didn't annul it. If it collapsed on its own from time. The pieces are still asur, but not achi, but then they need to be mevatel each one of them. They can't do it as a unit anymore. We said you could do it beforehand. The guy was able to break the nose, and the whole thing is not Avodah Zarah. He has to do part by part. Therefore, if one just finds pieces of Avodah Kochavin, if you find just broken pieces and it's not in a garbage dump, it's not between scraps. Earlier we spoke about Rambam says you find a hand, you find it else. Not necessarily is this the case. But here you found it stop. Maybe it's a piece, it on itself fell, and maybe you need one to be mevatel. You need Avodah Kochavin to be mevatel each piece. Now, if this was, you could put it together. It was a DIY, do-it-yourself type of Avodas Kochavin. You fit it in. The fact that it came apart not only doesn't help you, in this case, even if you took it apart, you have to be mevatel each portion on its own because they're standalone and they can be put together. The fact that you separate it doesn't mean the guy. However, if this is very intricate type of, go put it together. It's like a watch, you take it apart, the kid believes he's going to be able to put all the tracks back together. Okay? If that's what we're talking about, everything else will be annulled because it's not for a regular person to be able to put it back. And therefore, it's as if it's broken. Okay, the Ravid disagrees with the Rambam on this point. Now, halacha yud beis, the final halacha for today, and today we're going to learn about a bimus and a mizbeach, two types of altars. Mizbeach, if you have a mizbeach, which is constructed with many stones, and one of the stones got a pgam, which makes it sort of unfit for the mizbeach. Still asabana, actually not the tzuruba yet. As long as it's still connected to the mizbeach, it's one unit, and it will still be asabana until they crush the majority of this mizbeach. It's not enough one stone, like it's good enough one nose. Ubimus senivgam. However, if it's one unit, one stone that got a pgam, it's mutar. Ezu bimus. The Rambam here explains what is a bimus. Bezu mizbeach. What defines something as a bimus? Bimus even achas one stone. Mizbeach avarim harbe. V'keitzam batlan avnei markulis. So this is fancy. This all works for a mizbeach of avanim. But what happens when the whole Avodah Zarah is just a whole bunch of random stones? How do you show that it's not stones anymore for you, and you don't care for it? That markulis was just a pile of stones throwing more stones. So how do you do that? It's like the Rambam. Kivan shabanim and binyan. Once a goy, avodah Kochavin, idol worshiper, built out of it a building, or he coated, he made a pathway out of it, cobblestones. At that point, it's mutar. How does one annul an Asherah tree? Kirsten and Allah. If he took off a toothpick, Kirsten, he's chewing on a leaf, or a root he pulled off, natal man a makel, a sharvit, he took off a stick or a twig, or sheshval, a shaloy letzarka, or he sanded it down. But shaloy letzarka, it's not beautifying the tree stam. So he shows that he doesn't care, doesn't have value for this tree. And areza betela, how taking down a layer to beautify the tree, he asura, the tree will remain usur because you do care for it. However, ushpa'eh mutarim, it will become mutar because that what you cut off that you do not consider any more part of it. The rest you're trying to beautify. However, if this tree was served by a yid, as we said, yid will forever maintain its avodah zarah status and will never be batal. Now, I promised at the beginning, actually, 2 shiurim ago to relate to the concept of hakel a little bit, and I want to share a very special opportunity I had this past week, this Shabbos. We made a family reunion, and I want to put in a good word for everybody to do the same. This year is a special year. When Yidden gather together, it's a Shnas Hakel. One of the Makoidos to the whole concept of Shnas Hakel, that it's not just an event, an isolated event that was at the beginning of the year, is this very special Ravya, which is from the Rishonim. The Ravya says, there's a discussion about which Sefer Torah the king read from. Right, the Arab Levi. There's an opinion that which Sefer Torah the Kohen Gadol read from. The Sefer Torah that was in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Sefer Torah that was placed B'tzad Aron, there's a machlekes whether it's in the Aron or B'tzad Aron, there was a daf. That's the Sefer Torah. That the Melech read from that Sefer Torah. When did he put it back? We know there's only one time that you go in. Go to the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol. So when was it returned? According to those that hold that that's the Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote for all the Shvatim to compare and to make sure they have one girsa. So the Ravya says that the Kohen Gadol took it out on Yom Kippur for the benefit of the king to be able to read it on Sukkot, and it stayed out for an entire year. Sefer Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu read, that whole year they took Yerushalayim from it. The Kochavin, the Rebbe Kochavin, that this year is a year that you could take anytime you didn't gather with the intention of becoming one. That itself is a tremendous, impactful event that adds and contributes to each one's Yirah Shamayim. And in that light, we made a Shabbaton, the whole family together. And I want to talk about it, not because I want to just share, but because I think this is something that really, really should be done. So by way of introduction to the importance, I want to say this. We know that the goal of an act and to re-experience the experience of Matan Torah, when every year they come to the base after Shemitah, they all come. So I want to bring by way of as an example. A family and children, siblings grow, and they are one unit. Not intentionally, but they just are. They grow together, they fight together, right? And then, but meeting at Simchas, when each one has their own, they're responsible to come to family event. That doesn't build a relationship. That's strong enough to maintain a relationship. To build the relationship, they have to come as meat. The fact that we have a Hanukkah party, that doesn't cut. Not as an obligation, just everybody has their own achrayas, like by the children. And I want to tell you, it's a different ball game. Then afterwards, the bond that exists, period, to be one. Yovel, that indicates, it's an indicator. It's the 50th year. Yovel, good. Hakel is just a means to an end. They're gathering. L'man yishmu v'yilmedu v'yaru. So it should have been Shnas Yiras Shemayim. That's what the year is about. Hakel is a way to reach that. Why is it called the year of Hakel? Because it's not a side thing. It's a nation. Then afterwards, when they'll meet Shalosh Pamim Bashana, they see themselves already as a family. They strengthen. Those are bricks laid up. And I want to say it was very, very special. The fact that you come to Simcha is good. First of all, even that and it depends on how close they are. This is what brings Befratchnas Hakel is the time to do it. So that was my pitch. Everybody make sure to do it. I really, really believe in ideas of what to do and to build relationships. So contact me, but it's really, really, it's worth its weight in gold, and just do it. Just do it. Shnas Hakel. Make sure to do it. Have a gewaldige evening. Shkoyach for joining, everybody.